Thank you, Rita. Coming up on BBC London. After the murder of 15-year-old Eliane Andam, we hear from those in Croydon asking how to better protect young women and girls from violence.
It was a lot of young girls now more interested in what if I carry a knife, would I get stopped? How would the police officer search me if they're males?
Also on the programme tonight, how to help more Londoners access free dental care as a quarter of children show signs of tooth decay. Plus,
this is a charity. This isn't a business that's in the business of making money, but it does need to survive. It does need money to continue its research.
RHS Wesley Gardens wants compensation. It's blaming falling visitor numbers on a nearby road regeneration project, which aims to improve driver safety.
And join me live at the National Gallery, where the blockbuster Vincent van Gogh exhibition will be staying open all night for this, its final weekend.
Good evening and welcome to the programme. I'm Victoria Hollins. It was a murder that shocked the capital. 15-year-old Eliane Andam was fatally stabbed on a bus in Croydon in September 2023. Yesterday, Hassan Santamu was found guilty of her murder. The attack led to many questions about what can be done to stop youth violence and to protect young women and girls. And in Croydon, there are now calls for change, as our Home Affairs correspondent Sonia Jessup reports.
Our God, you reign forever.
Eliane Andam was loved by so many here in Croydon. Her murder at the age of 15 shocked the community, and it's led to calls for more action against knife crime.
Because it doesn't matter, you see, if you come from a good home or a bad home, your identity can be mistaken and your child's life is taken. It is a lottery. We are living in the Wild West.
Croydon still has some of the highest rates of knife crime in the capital. In 2021, when teen homicide rose to record levels in London, 5 young boys lost their lives in this borough.
It was only 4 years ago, Sonia, that you and I were sitting in rooms in this building, and every other month we had tears rolling down our faces of teenagers that had lost their life.
Many of those who've been working to try to protect young people had hoped things were starting to improve. But Eliane's murder changed that in an instant.
It caused a lot of young women to ask questions about their safety. Some of the things I was hearing with days after, young girls talking about they're going to now carry protection to protect themselves because this was a violent act against a young girl.
It was a lot of young girls now more interested in what if I carry a knife, would I get stopped? How would the police officer search me if they're males?
Talisha Gopal says she's still talking to girls about why they must not carry a weapon. Her own brother, Jermaine, was murdered in 2017. Like Eliane, he was just 15 years old.
There was a desensitisation to the fact that young boys were dying so consistently. And I think actually it became easy to just say, well, that's just a male problem. The girls are okay and they're facing different issues. However, what we see now is that this is a wider thing about how young people interact. I think nowadays, young boys, young men are not being taught how to regulate their emotions. And what happens is when there's this idea of ego, of shame, of embarrassment, they go into a fight or flight mode.
There are calls for much earlier intervention in primary school, extra funding from central government and more focus on girls.
What are we doing to engage young women around how they feel about knife crime and the effects of it? What about girls that are caught up in gangs? Equally, some through, being victims themselves. How are we engaging with them? So I think this forces a different conversation where actually we open it up, the conversation, to not just young boys and gang affiliation, but young women.
A lot of young people lose purpose and their focus because of the societal issues that we have, economic issues, and also social media is a big conversation that needs to be had because the influence on social media is so much greater than what we're doing in schools.
She says it's vital to give hope, something to live for, to young people who've become used to losing loved ones.
Going to funerals is like catching up with friends. That's the generation we're living in. However, I still remain optimistic and hopeful. If we can reach children at an earlier stage, we can save lives.
Well, Sonia joins me in the studio now. And Sonia, you've been talking to the police about some of those issues, haven't you?
Yeah, the senior investigating officer on this case, DCI Becky Woodsford, she was full of praise yesterday, of course, for some of Eliane's young friends who helped bring Hassan Sentemi to justice. And she called Eliane's murder an unspeakable act of violence against a defenceless teenage girl. I asked her about the issue of keeping young people safe, and she says there's lots of things that she welcomes, such as the recent changes, the ban on zombie knives that we've seen brought in. But she says that she has another concern too. Have a listen.
Actually, in this case, Hassan used a kitchen knife. It was taken from underneath his kitchen sink. They're knives that everybody has access to in their home. And I think really the wider piece for me is, why did Hassan take that knife? Because if he hadn't taken the knife with him that day, Eliane would still be alive. And that, to me, is something that we really need to understand, not just as a police, but as a community, why young people feel they need to take knives out with them.
So, Sonia, I suppose what we're hearing is the need to look at some of those more underlying issues.
Yeah, and there is work going on around that. The Mayor's Violence Reduction Unit was set up to look at that, the idea that you can't just arrest your way out of crime. And we heard a bit about the work they're doing earlier this week on this programme, such as the mentoring projects they do with young people. Their director, Liv Peck, also agreed that violence against women and girls is a priority, and we asked her about what work is taking place around that.
Specifically doing work with young boys and trying to tackle that toxic masculinity, think about who are positive role models for them, and making sure that they too, recognise what is appropriate behaviour and what isn't appropriate behaviour, because we see too much of this misogyny fuelled by online figures at the moment, and it's really important that we equip them with, I suppose, the skills and the understanding of what is acceptable and what is appropriate.
She also agreed that earlier intervention is needed. And remember, we heard in court that Hassan Sentemi was displaying aggressive behaviour towards other children from the age of 11. Liv Peck says they are doing work in primary schools. They are also doing work at that key transition stage when children go into secondary school. Teen homicide in London is at its lowest level at the moment in more than a decade, but still 11 young people lost their lives to violence last year. That's their families, their communities devastated, and of course calls for much more to be done.
Of course, Sonia, thanks very much indeed for all of that. Thank you. Lots more to come this evening, including...
Gladiators, ready!
Phantom and Electro are here telling us all about the new series of Gladiators, back on our screens tomorrow.
And I'm at the beautiful historic grounds of RHS Wisley. Find out later why the gardening charity is asking for millions of pounds in compensation.
The Mayor is being urged to do more to help Londoners get access to free dental care. A new report from City Hall found more than a quarter of 5-year-olds in London experienced tooth decay, and tooth extractions are a big reason for children being treated in hospital. The report also asks the Mayor to help improve education and consider the possibility of adding fluoride to water supplies. Jessica Ure reports.
Zara, can you just open wide for me, please? I'm just going to take a look at your teeth.
Dr Patel has 3 dental practices across the capital, treating both NHS and private patients. But NHS work is becoming increasingly difficult because NHS contracts and the funding allocated through them does not always cover the costs of the work.
For areas where there's high demands and high volume of work required to stabilise patients, NHS dentists, financially, it's not viable. So therefore, the dentists are relying on giving private options to the patients, and also patients that come to the practice as a private patient.
You need to clean these areas a bit more.
Certain groups, like children and pregnant women, are entitled to free dental care, but actually getting an NHS appointment isn't always possible.
I feel that due to the funding and due to the lack of funding, that the patient's access is compromised.
Research shows almost half of children in London went a year without seeing a dentist. And the year before, over 5,000 children were admitted to hospital for extractions.
Can you see what I'm picking up with my probe?
But it's not just children who are affected. The British Dental Association say a third of adults in London have unmet dental needs.
I'm having my wisdom teeth removed tomorrow. I've been going to an NHS dentist near my family home for about 20 years now. They know me very well and they were able to refer me quite quickly on to the hospital. So it wasn't too bad. But I've just moved to Dulwich, so I haven't got one here locally. So that is being more problematic, I would say.
My dentist has gone private. It's just quite sad, really.
And have you stuck with them, but you're having to pay?
Yeah. I mean, I just really like my dentist, so I will pay, but I don't really want to, obviously, because it's really, really expensive.
I got an NHS appointment, started as a new patient with them back in April this year. Yeah. But then a month later, my husband tried and couldn't.
The London Assembly are now pressing government for reform.
We heard time and time again from organisations such as the British Dental Association about how the current system is flawed and broken. What we heard is that more private work and private appointments is being taken up, so capacity is there to take on more NHS patients. It's just that the incentives are in the wrong place.
Central governments say they are planning to reform the dental contract to encourage more dentists to offer NHS services. But when that will happen and whether that gets to the root of the issue is unclear.
That's all for today, Zara.
Jessica Yore, BBC London.
Now for a look at some of the day's other news stories now. And a man's been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder after a woman in her 20s died and a 2-year-old girl was seriously injured in Ashford in Surrey. The woman was pronounced dead at the scene. The child was taken to hospital shortly after 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon. The Mayor of London, Sir Sadiq Khan, is to be investigated for accepting 6 free tickets to a Taylor Swift concert. The Conservatives on the London Assembly have been calling for an investigation since it emerged in October that the Mayor had declared the tickets late and undervalued them. His spokesman said there'd been an administrative error which had been corrected. Arsenal have confirmed Renée Sleggers as the new permanent manager of their women's team. The Dutch woman succeeded Jonas Eidval on an interim basis back in October and has remained unbeaten in her 11 games in charge. She's now been appointed until the end of the 2025-26 season. Arsenal host Crystal Palace in the WSL on Sunday. More than 1 million people visit the RHS Wisley Gardens in Surrey every year, attracting keen gardeners and school children from across the country. But recently it's been harder for visitors to get there because of a huge road building project right on their doorstep. It's meant the closure of parts of the A3 and M25, which the Royal Horticultural Society says has caused a massive drop in visitor numbers and income. Now it's calling for compensation from National Highways, as Laxmi Gopal reports.
The beautiful historic grounds of RHS Wisley, like many nature-filled spaces, soothing for the soul. Less so is the route there. Since 2022, roadworks at junction 10 of the M25A3 intersection have caused a drop in visitors to Wisley.
I think it's very easy to underestimate the value of beauty when your everyday life, how your spirits are lifted by plaited willows like these. And
Alan Titchmarsh, who's vice president of the RHS, says there's a wider impact of visitor decline.
Now that is affecting the research work that can be done here to future-proof our gardens and our planet against global warming and climate change, apprenticeships, outreach to local communities. This isn't just a pretty garden alongside the A3. This is doing work for humanity, for the human race, in making sure that we can hand on a landscape to our children and grandchildren.
Since the roadworks began, the RHS says Wisley's had 350,000 fewer visitors a year, resulting in £6 million in losses so far. It's asking for the government to intervene to enable compensation, as it expects that number to grow.
By the end of the roadworks in 2026, the RHS says the losses here at Wisley will total £11 million. And they say while that's a substantial amount for them, it's small change compared to the £317 million roadwork scheme.
The counter-argument would be that economic times are tough and there are many businesses that get affected whenever roadworks like these happen.
But the key word there is business. This is not a business, this is a charity. Looking after gardens and spaces like the RHS do is vital for the future of the planet. It's not something which is all about money. It needs to carry on.
We don't come half as often as we used to.
We used to come every month, but now, I think last year, we came 4 times. Just don't come. It takes 20, 30 minutes to get off the motorway now, so we don't come very often.
I haven't been for about 18 months just because it's been so bad. I mean, the hold-ups at the A3 Junction 10 have been terrible.
It wasn't too bad today, actually. We come the back through Ripley, but we came today because of the closure tomorrow.
National Highways says the improvement works would reduce congestion, improve safety, restore Heathland and bring economic benefits to the local area. But in the meantime, with a road closure on a stretch of the A3 tonight until 6 a.m. on Monday, the impact on RHS Wisley continues. Lakshmi Gopal, BBC London.
Now, Gladiator fans, are you ready? The Hits TV show returns to our screens this weekend with a fresh set of contestants taking on the ultimate test of speed and strength. The second series will see the return of the metal-crushing event Atmosphere from the 90s, as well as a brand new feature too. In a moment, we'll be hearing from 2 of the gladiators, Londoners Electro and Phantom. But first, let's take a look at them in action.
Gladiators, ready! 3, 2, 1!
It's a Powerball debut for both our contenders. He really is up against it here though. Phantom almost a full foot taller, and he's raining in the blows on our pocket rocket, who's down and out. Phantom hitting all the right notes.
I'm very pleased to say that Electro and Phantom join me in the studio now. Thank you so much for coming in. What we've just seen just shows quite how physical this is as a show. It really must kind of take its toll on you, I guess. Can you tell us about what kind of challenges are posed by the show, but also how much fun it probably is as well?
I mean, we'll start with the fun aspect. It's one of the most magical things I've ever done, and I've done a lot of things, and I think Electro can say the same thing. When you enter the stadium, it is complete magic, and what we've got in store for the audience over the next 11 weeks is epic. There's not one show that isn't going to be jam-packed with something exciting. So, yeah.
And Electro, we saw a bit of you in action there. It is extremely physical, isn't it?
It is very physical, yeah. I mean, we're all very well prepped for it. We're athletes in our own rights. We've all done many different sports in our time. Yeah, my background is sprinting, bodybuilding, and then sort of more of a functional sort of athlete. But I feel like that has obviously equipped us to come into the games as well. So essentially mindset as well was a big one. So everything we've ever done in sport, we've got that mindset that allows us to come into the games and execute them very well.
I mean, my background, I started off as a sprinter, domestic level, and then I went off to do a niche sport, bobsleigh. I did that for 10 years. And then from bobsleigh, I went on to do gladiators. But again, my school was both ends of the spectrum. In bobsleigh, I've won gold medals, I've gone to Olympic Games in bobsleigh, but I've also crashed at 90 miles an hour. So I've got my receipts, and that's sort of what we want to bring to the stadium. We want to bring an arena where you can have both ends, but you always have to sort of have the willpower and the tenacity to persevere. And that's the school that we bring to the stadium, just to make sure the contenders are ready to go. We're not going to make it easy for them. We want to see your best.
You mentioned the stadium there, and the crowd is obviously like a huge part of that, and the family aspect of it as well. How much do you feel that? Do you notice that when you're there recording the programme?
Oh, big time. I mean, I think the arena is, I want to say, 4,000 people.
Yeah.
So it's definitely like an electric energy when you're in the arena, and obviously kids absolutely love it. And there's definitely loads of little phantoms out there with their hoods up.
Yeah, little electros as well, and you definitely feel the vibe. I was a kid once, and I looked up to inspirational characters like ourselves, and it means a lot when you can see it and when it's tangible. And so I play my part as much as possible.
Would you say that the competitors have stepped up a little bit this year? How do they compare? They've watched and learnt maybe from the last series.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the contenders in Series 1 were great as well, but we've definitely got some great contenders in Series 2. Everyone brings something different. I feel like they're learning the tricks a little bit more of the games, but we're also very clued up as well, so it makes for a good game.
Yeah, they definitely did their homework, and I think the producers literally cloned the best ones from Series 1.
So it's been quite a challenge for you this time.
It's not a challenge for me. I'm Phantom. But there definitely was an increase in the level of resistance that I felt. But then that just made better TV, so the audience need to tune in to see what happens.
And there are some changes this year, I know, on this series, the second series. there's going to be cameras on your helmets. What's that going to add, do you think, to the viewing experience?
It just really adds another dynamic point of view. You can really get a sense to what the contender is feeling as well. The cat and mouse of it is really thrilling.
Can I ask you what it's like after the show when it's finished? You must not just be physically exhausted, but there must be quite a lot of adrenaline going around as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to go from being in that environment and then coming back to, like, let's say, normality in a way. But, I mean, we're gladiators all year round, so it's what we do, and we're excited to go again.
So, finally, what are you most excited about the fans, everyone getting to see?
Just that this series is bigger, better, we're back. There's expect the unexpected in this series, and, yeah, it's just going to be great in every way, shape or form.
Well, I know certainly in my house we absolutely can't wait, particularly my kids. So thanks very much indeed for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Electro and Phantom there, and you can catch them and the rest of the Gladiators on BBC One at 5:50 tomorrow, or of course on the iPlayer. Now, for only the second time in its history, the National Gallery will open through the night tonight. It's to accommodate the huge demand for the current exhibition, Van Gogh, Poets and Lovers. It brings together works from museums and private collections around the world and has attracted nearly 300,000 visitors. Well, let's find out more from Alice Bandakravi, who spent the day at the National Gallery.
They are some of the most famous paintings by one of the most famous painters ever, and people have come in their droves to get a glimpse of sunflowers in vases, starry skies, and the bedroom furniture that Vincent van Gogh is so famous for. The exhibition concentrates on 2 years of Van Gogh's work, the last 2 years of his life, painting in the south of France.
This exhibition looks at this moment of supreme creativity on the part of Van Gogh. When he's very conscious, he writes to his brother and says, "Nobody understands what I'm doing, but in 100 years they will." He invents a new way of painting, a new expressivity that would have incredible implications around the world.
Within a couple of decades of painting these scenes, people did understand and appreciate Van Gogh's talent, and 135 years later, the appeal has only intensified.
The modern world we live in is being invented by him and a number of his colleagues, but particularly by him alone in Provence, turning out one utterly original picture after another.
More than 280,000 people have visited the National Gallery to see this blockbuster show, which will stay open all night tonight on its last weekend.
We've travelled down from Manchester and we're here for the day, but we've come specifically for it.
You could see and feel a lot of the themes that we all love in Van Gogh's art. I thought it was really well done.
She read the book beforehand, so she was very knowledgeable.
I think it's superb. It's amazing. It's the second time I've been here. I got membership just so that I could come because I couldn't get tickets.
And it is now fully booked, but some of the paintings will remain here, part of the permanent collection for everyone to admire. Well, I'm joined now by Sir Gabriele Finaldi, Director of the National Gallery. Are you surprised at the level of interest? We're in this packed room, and it's been packed all day for weeks.
Well, Van Gogh's a huge draw for the public, but I'm very, very pleased that so many people have wanted to come and see the show, and so many people have been able to come and see the show. So we're looking at a figure that's probably just above 300,000. That's pretty close to the largest number we've ever had for a paying show at the National Gallery. Who knows, by the end of the weekend it might be the most visited show at the National Gallery.
And you're staying open all night tonight to accommodate more visitors. Is that something that you might do more of in the future? And logistically, how difficult is that to do, to keep something like this open all night?
So we got an all-nighter tonight, and then we got 2 more days left. It's only the second time in our history that we've done an all-nighter. The first time was with the Leonardo da Vinci exhibition, which was nearly 15 years ago. There's a certain amount of logistics. You want to ensure that people are comfortable, they're fed, they can buy the catalogue if they want, and they're safe when they leave the building. So yeah, but just very excited at the prospect of people coming to the National Gallery throughout the night.
And are you going to be pulling an all-nighter this evening?
I'll be staying for a few hours, maybe not at 3 in the morning, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
It might be interesting to see who is here at 3 o'clock in the morning, though.
Absolutely, and sure enough, maybe that's part of the future as well, in the opening late into the night.
Well, we shall see. We shall see on Monday what the visitor numbers did. Thank you very much for your time. And back to you in the studio, Victoria.
Alice, still very busy there. Thanks very much indeed. OK, time for a check on the weather. And Stav's here. Hi, Stav.
Hi there, you OK? Good evening to you. It's been another chilly day today, and if anything, it's going to be a little bit colder over the weekend. Iconic central London building behind me. You can just make out a few holes in the cloud there, but it was generally cloudy and pretty cool again. So for the weekend, it stays rather gloomy, I'm afraid. Mostly dry, and it will be turning colder as well. And we continue with that blanket of cloud through this evening and overnight. There may be just a few holes in it here and there. It will be quite a thin blanket, so temperatures will be allowed to fall close to freezing in a few spots, but generally about 1 or 2 degrees, so it is a chilly night to come. So it's all because of this area of high pressure sitting across the near continent, bringing some slightly cooler air from the south and southeast. You can just see that blue hue there in the air mass chart, just rippling its way northwards across large parts of England and Wales. So we start off on a chilly note tomorrow. A lot of cloud around. Through the afternoon, there could be enough holes in the cloud to allow some glimmers of brightness in there, particularly across more southern and western areas. But I think for most it'll stay cloudy. And there may be the odd spit of sleet in the air in the thickest of the cloud towards the east. Top temperatures in that southeasterly wind only around 4 degrees. So it's going to be a cold day. Saturday night, we continue with that blanket of cloud. Again, the odd hole in that cloud may allow temperatures to dip to freezing, or maybe even just below, certainly outside the M25, around 1 degree in the capital centre. So to Sunday, another grey day. Unfortunately, the cloud will be quite thick at times. The odd glimmer of brightness here and there, but temperature-wise, 5 or 6 degrees. You can see southerly winds changing the wind direction slightly, but it's not a warmer direction. We have to wait as we move deeper into the new week as low pressure begins to take over from the Atlantic, and that'll bring slightly less cold air, but with it turning more unsettled. And you can see into next week it will start much the same, chilly with a lot of cloud, then it starts to turn breezier, a little bit milder with outbreaks of rain as we push towards the end of the week. So there will be some changes to the weather, but it's another week or so of more pretty chilly and rather benign weather on the cards. So
oh dear, thank you for that, thank you. Tonight's main headline now. The full Israeli cabinet meets to ratify a Gaza ceasefire and hostage deal after it was approved by the Security Cabinet. Gaza officials say more than 100 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli strikes since the deal was announced on Wednesday. But that's about it from me. Assad will be here later with our 10:30 programme. And do head over to our website to find out why celebrities are requesting a London baker recreates their faces in cake after one of his creations went viral. But for now, from all of us here on the team, whatever you're doing, have a lovely evening and a wonderful weekend. Bye for now.